So Proverbs 31, I think the last time I actually preached on Proverbs 31, all the women were gone that morning. For some reason or another, everyone was, had something to do and they weren't in here, so I had a room full of men. I'm like, what am I going to do? But the thing you realize is the principles are crucial for all of us. And so this is a great passage, but this is about women this morning, and we are going to focus on that. And I introduce this first off with these thoughts. Women have been liberated right out of the genuine freedom they enjoyed for centuries to oversee their home, rear their children, pursue personal creativity. They have been brainwashed to believe that the absence of a titled payroll occupation enslaves a woman to failure, boredom, and imprisonment within the confines of the home. And this is a movement that is not only happening in the world, but also in the church. We have evangelical feminism that is confronting the church and continues to do so, undermining the role of woman as wife and mother in the household, and undermining really God's design. And there is so much that is happening in the world today, and for us in America, that is attacking the family. And it is crucial that we understand the importance of the family and God's design for it, that it is, if you will, it is the foundation for all society everywhere, for every age. And it starts with husband and it starts with wife. And so it is crucial that we understand these things, and these are things that we not lay aside. Though feminism speaks of liberation, self-fulfillment, personal rights, breaking down barriers, these phrases inevitably mean the opposite. And when they talk about homemaking, they think of it as not a career. You need something more as a woman in this world. Because if all you are is a homemaker, a housewife, a mother, if that's all you are, then you are lacking. Then there is something that you need, you are deficient, and you need something more to make you fulfilled. But the reality is that a homemaker is a career. It is a task that is very difficult, and it takes everything that a woman has to fulfill it exactly how God wants it to be. This career is important enough to demand a woman's diligent preparation, foremost commitment, full energies, and greatest creativity. It takes a lot of creativity to be a wife and a mother. It really does. I can look back over the years of growing up and the creativity my mom has exerted in our household, raising all of us kids, and, if you will, helping us to understand what life and family and everything else ought to look like. It took all of her efforts, all of her energies. I know that I pushed her to the test as well as my other siblings, but, she had to put up with a great deal in regards to me. And I pressed their commitment, her commitment to the Lord, and I thank her always for her faithfulness. And it is that faithfulness that in the end has brought me back around to where I needed to be. It was that unflinching commitment to serving God and being faithful to God that is always that reminder to me, and I pray that I will be to my kids as I raise them. This statement from Dorothy Morrison makes this comment: homemaking is not an employment for slothful, unimaginative, incapable women. It has as much challenge and opportunity, success and failure, growth and expansion, perks and incentives as any corporate career. If a woman was to do this and to do it right, it would take everything that she has. And so this morning I want to focus on the dignity of woman as wife and mother. And I take you to Proverbs chapter 31, verse 10a. And this could be translated, an excellent woman who can find, and someone suggested this passage was intended for young men as a guide to how to find a wife, and there is no better passage really to go to. If you want to find a woman to marry, and I will direct all my sons here and say, you find this woman, don't let her go. Okay? And find an altar, and I'll do the marriage ceremony. Let's get her there and let's get her done. Because you don't want to miss out on this kind of woman. It celebrates a life within the confines of the household, but it extends outside of the household. It's not just about the family, it's about community. I've always appreciated that about my mom growing up, is that there was this sense of connection to the community. I remember one day, I was just thinking just recently, my friend Mike Dahlem, he was having trouble at home, and he took off from home, and he came to our house, and he was having difficulties with his mom and dad and stuff, and he came to our house for the day, and his intent was that he was going to leave home. He was still in high school, but his intent was he was going to leave home. He just couldn't take anymore. He couldn't handle his relationship with his father. And my mom allowed him the freedom to hang out there for the afternoon. And she gave him some wise, godly, motherly counsel. And one of the things that I remember very distinctly of that day was that as Mike was heading out the door, he turned around and gave her a hug. He said, "Thanks, Mom." But that's who she was when we were growing up. She was mom to everybody. The neighborhood kids, we'd pack up the truck and she'd haul us all to Awanas, take us to youth group. But she was mom to more than just us. There were others who came to live in our home, and they were mom and dad, and that is where they resided. And so that kind of attitude and commitment, reaching beyond the family into the community, has also influenced my life and continues to do so. Here is celebrated the grace and kindness of womanhood and the marvelous contribution that an inwardly lovely woman makes to building up a stable family and the community to which she is a part. And I just tell you, it takes a lot to make a home. It takes a lot to make a home, not just a house. But I'll just tell you this, the character that is established here is not because of how she was born. It's not about a hereditary thing, it's about a spiritual thing. She is a woman who fears the Lord. That is the thing that underlines all of this, is her commitment to her God. And that is what makes this woman so amazing, is her fear of the Lord. This is a phrase that brackets Proverbs. It runs all the way through Proverbs. This is what makes the difference. This is what makes the difference. More important than beauty and charm or even work is the fear of Yahweh. And this shapes everything this woman does. And having this fear, she has no fear for the future. And I will tell my sons, if you find a woman who fears God, get a hold of her and don't let go. Because they're hard to find. They're hard to find. And so often we focus on the things that they do, but what is the motivation? What is that thing that drives us? And for her, it is the fear of God. So this dignity of woman as wife and mother, Proverbs 31, 10 through 31. And I have to do this, so let's look at the passage together this morning. And I'll walk through some of the characteristics, but I have to deal with structure. You know this, right? The Scripture is beautiful, how God has communicated in so many different ways. Not just in the words that are used, but the way in which He presents the truth as He guides with the Holy Spirit. And so, two facts about the structure of this particular passage. It is an acrostic poem. Each verse begins with a letter from the Hebrew alphabet from Aleph to Tau. This is amazing because every line begins then with a letter from the Hebrew alphabet, and it runs through the entire of the alphabet. Now I'll tell you that there is significance to this, but I'll come back to it in a moment. The other element about this particular poem is that it is arranged around key terms and key ideas in what we call a chiastic structure. Now, just to give a visual perspective of this, and all of these terms in Hebrew are the same, are built off the same root. I just give it to you in English, but we have wife and woman built off the same root. We have excellent and noble. We have her husband referenced twice in this particular construction. She stretches out her hands, her palms grasp, and she spreads out her palms to the poor. This starts the structure, but I'll tell you, this chiastic structure goes even broader than this. If you look at the full poem altogether, it is like this. And it is very masterfully done, and it is so beautiful. And at the heart of it is this: her husband is known, verse 23. Everything about this poem is about the woman, but at the same time, it's not about the woman. At the heart of it is what she makes of her husband. In other words, she is a woman who makes her man. We'll come back to that in a moment. But this is a beautiful, beautiful poem. The way that it's organized, the acrostic structure, and also the chiastic structure. Now you say, well, why do I bother looking at this? There are two things this structure teaches us. The first is this: the acrostic form suggests a complete exploration of the subject. He uses the totality of the Hebrew alphabet from Aleph to Tau. He runs all the way through that, laying out each line, each stanza as he deals with this woman and gives the characteristic of her. In other words, if you want to talk about a well-rounded woman, this is a well-rounded woman. This is the total package. This is the real deal. Everything that is laid out here is the kind of thing that you are looking for in a wife and also in a mother. The second thing that the structure teaches us is that in its chiastic structure, it reflects the carefully ordered environment of a home and world that wisdom brings about. So not only in the words that are used to communicate these truths, but the structure that is given to us as God records this truth. It is a beautiful poem. It is a complete poem. It is an amazing picture of the kind of woman, wife, and mother that we should be looking for and aspire to. And it is an ideal. It really is. I mean, oftentimes women could look at this passage and say, I'm not there. Well, that's the point. It is that ideal to always keep them pressing on. But there are so many things in here that are to be celebrated. And we can't walk through all of them, but we will begin to walk through them. But this woman is the embodiment of wisdom, and it's a fitting into the book of Proverbs. We meet wisdom of Yahweh in this wife and mother's example, and she becomes that here for others to follow. And just as woman wisdom calls out in earlier chapters of the book for those to listen and learn, we find that she also manifests or speaks for God. And that's the amazing thing about the character that's laid out here. The things that she does manifest God's wisdom. She is speaking God to her household and to her husband. And oftentimes women think about the household as being sort of this mundane thing, that there is no eternal impact in what they do. Washing dishes, vacuuming, that means nothing. No, that means everything. It means everything. You communicate eternal truths and virtues and characteristics that God desires in His people that reflect wisdom in the things that you do around the household. And I can look back over my childhood growing up and my mother in the home and the things that she did and the godliness and the wisdom that she manifested in the things that she did. She was speaking God to us. My wife does that for our children. She speaks God to them in the way that she conducts herself in the household. Her life then is an embodiment of God's wisdom, and it calls out as a role model. So I take you to this wife and mother and woman, and let's walk through some of the characteristics together. The first thing we find in verse 10, an excellent wife who can find, for her worth is far more than far above jewels. She's priceless. She's priceless. This is a great way to start this whole particular passage, and this is introductory, and it is very superlative, and it is very general because it is opening the door to everything that follows. It piques our curiosity. What kind of woman is this, right? If the words are being spoken as this, that she is excellent, and who can find, and in the sense of she's hard to find, the same as wisdom. This is not some kind of woman you'll find on every corner. This is not the kind of woman you're going to come across daily in the marketplace. No, this is someone who is unique. This is someone who stands out. This is someone who is set apart from everybody else. The Hebrew word that is used here is so marvelous, and it's inclusive. It embraces things like excellence, strength, worth, resourcefulness, and virtuous. It's tough for translators to come up with one term to capture what this term means in the Hebrew. It's tough to do, but that's the intent. Like I said, she is the full package. She is the real deal. Translations have tried words like capable or noble character or even perfect, trying to capture the ideal of totality or completeness. She is a complete woman. She is a complete wife. She is a complete mother. There is no better sketch of what womanhood should look like, what motherhood should look like, or what a wife should look like than this passage here. The verse underscores then the scarcity and rarity of such a woman. I typically don't do this, but I'll do this. I took this quote from a Louis L'Amour Western. I love Westerns. But I couldn't pass by. I was reading it the other night, and I'm like, I'm going to put this in the message. So here's the quote from the story. There are in man's life certain ultimate things, and just one ultimate woman. When a man finds that woman, he does not pass on unless he is a fool. You are a fool if you pass this woman by. You are a fool if you pass this woman by. And if you have this woman, you better praise her every single day. You better praise her every single day. Because they're hard-pressed to find. She is rarer than the rarest of jewels. And again, this is a tough Hebrew term to translate. Some translate corals, rubies, so on. The point is to capture that she is a precious gem that you have to search high and low and dig deep into mountainsides to find this one gem. But when you do, she's worth hanging on to. Dee Patterson, she said this, a homemaker does her job without enticement of paycheck, but she cannot be duplicated for any amount of money. Why? For she is worth more than rubies. She just is. We know that commercial, right? Such and such costs this, such and such costs this, and then you go priceless. This kind of woman is priceless. She's priceless. And we need to let them know that they are that to us. I know I don't tell my mom every day how much I'm thankful for, but I am. She has molded and shaped my character, and I am thankful that I have married a woman of like kind. Because I know that if I were to be taken home to the Lord today or tomorrow, that I know that my children will be raised in godliness in the fear of God. She has a total confidence of her husband in every area of life. And I love this, and this is such a challenging thing to me, but this is a commitment of the husband. The term trust, batak, it begins the verse, and again, this is an acrostic, but this is the first word that comes in the line of this verse. And it is the reflection of the fact that the husband trusts her. And I love that the fact that this is the first word, trust. Trust. It is so crucial to a marriage, and it is so crucial to a household. The husband trusts his wife. It is a deliberate and willful trust. Notice with me, the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. Now, this is pretty fascinating because if you notice the line, the heart of her husband trusts in her, and it doesn't say because he has no lack of gain. No. In other words, his trust isn't driven by the fact that she does these things and therefore he trusts her. What does it say? The heart of the husband trusts in her and he will have no lack of gain. It's not the reason for, but it is a consequence of. I don't trust my wife because she's done all of these things, then I put my trust in her. No, I trust my wife, and the consequence of that is she does these things. That's an amazing truth, is it not? Sometimes I think about this even with raising kids. We do this, we keep telling them, you got to earn our trust, right? You got to earn our trust. You got to earn our trust. But maybe we need to just start giving our trust without them earning it. Imagine what it would do to them if you just walked up to them and says, you know what, I trust you. And I had this conversation with my eldest son last night sitting on the back couches. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, son, I got a message tomorrow. It is midnight. I can't have this conversation, right? Untimely time, but I just need to focus on this time together with him. And so we did. And one of the things that I affirmed to him is, son, I trust you. I trust you. More than you will know, I trust you. Sometimes they just need to hear that. Not, you've done all of these things, and therefore I'm going to put my trust in you. Release them. And this is what happens. The husband releases the wife by just saying, I trust you. And you look at all the things in this poem that she does, and he has nothing to do with them. He's not mentioned until verse 23, essentially. And he's found at the gates, and then it's back to the woman again. He releases her to be all that God has intended her to be. And trust is one of the most essential ingredients to marriage and also to household for it to function. It's like I said last Sunday. I impress upon my kids, if we do not have honesty and trust in this household, we cannot be a family that God wants us to be. The husband's trust in her is manifested by the relative absence of any of the significant things that happen in this poem. It's all about her. It's all about her. However you flesh this out in your home and life and marriage and so on, that's how you flesh it out. I trust my wife. She asked me, hey, hon, I need to buy this. Can I spend them? I don't care. Do what you got to do. You know, I trust you. Do what you got to do. So she comes home one day. She's at the store. Well, hon, this couple, they saw I had the church name on the van, so they cornered me. They said they needed money, so I gave them money. How much did you give them? I give them $100, and then, okay, sure, no problem. Comes in a few weeks, says, hon, this ministry, I heard about it, this gospel ministry, and over in India, I need to support. So I just signed us up. We're supporting these missionaries. All right. I trust you. I trust you. This is something that I learned at the very beginning of my marriage, that I would trust her and put my trust in her. And I have never not had since then. Lemuel's mother warns him in the first 9 verses of chapter 31. Notice with me in verse 3. She says this to him, do not give your strength to women or your ways to that which destroys kings. So she warns Lemuel about those who can deplete a man of his strength. But the reality of it is, and the same Hebrew term is used here in regards to this woman in 31:10, this kind of woman, she doesn't deplete your strength. It is through her strength that she does good, not evil or harm to her man. These women are hard to find, but man, if you find it in her, do not let her go. It is the persistence and continuity of her goodness that helps her to set her apart. What she does, and this is interesting, the Hebrew term gamal, is not a sporadic, temporary deed of kindness, but a consistent way of life. This is who she is. She does her man good all the time. She makes the man. She makes the man. Her husband lacks nothing because she knows what she needs, and she makes sure that he has it. This woman is dedicated to her husband. All she says and does is meant to support, build up, encourage, and affirm him. And in verse 23, we find him at the city gates where he conducts business, and he is known there. He is known there. Just as much as the husband releases the wife releases the husband to do what he needs to do and to be all that he is to be. And I remind you of this structure. The husband is mentioned at the beginning in verses 11 and 12. And again in verses 20 and 29, but the heart of it is right here in verse 23. Her husband is known. And the amazing thing is that if you look at the influence of this woman, it's not just in the household, it's even in the city gates. What he does is because she sets him free or releases him to do what he needs to do. I've watched my mom over the years where my dad would travel and he's speaking all over the place and he's traveling to Canada and everywhere else, helping churches get back on track and get focused on the Word of God. And my mom kept things running so that my dad could go do what he needed to do. And when he was pastoring and teaching full-time at the seminary and working on his doctorate in linguistics, she kept the house going. She kept life going. And in the end, I look back and realize she was releasing him to be all that he needed to be and that God wanted him to be. And part of that is because he has released her to be all that she was meant to be. She cares for her household, verse 13. She looks, notice, for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like merchant ships. She brings food from afar. She rises also while it is still night. And she gives food to her household and portions to her maids. And she considers a field and buys it. And on it goes as it lays out the work that she does as she provides for the family. But it's amazing, verse 13, following the acrostic, this is the first word that comes, seeks. I find it interesting that almost every line in this poem is action. She does this. She does this. This is not a dormant woman. This is not one who sits idly by. This is not one who kicks back in the lazy boy and puts her feet up. She seeks, emphasizing her eagerness to the task. She is an industrious woman, and she is a hard-working spirit. There is nothing in laziness about her. And from this then initiates all of the things that she does to contribute to her home. This then opens the door. And you notice this poem just keeps building. Starts off with this great superlative statement, and it just keeps building as to what kind of woman this looks like. In time long before the Industrial Revolution, this was looked upon as being a feminine virtue, that she was industrious. Verse 13 then starts to catalog all of the things that she does in fulfilling this role in regards to her household. And we find that she is busy buying raw materials and spinning and weaving and sewing and doing of all of those things that were necessary for the household. She made the house a home. I realized my mom, we lived for quite a part of our life in La Mirada, California. My dad taught at Talbot Theological Seminary and pastored a church there. And then God put us on the move, and it seemed like we were always moving after that. They lived in a lot of places. I've learned how to pack moving trucks by moving them all the time. That's how I got so good at it. And with every move, there was another church, there was another ministry, there were new people to get to know, lives to build into. And I noticed something about Mom, that every time we'd move into a new house, she would start right away at decorating. And I'm sure part of that was to help sort of alleviate for her the change, because she doesn't like change. She's not a person who likes to be bouncing around a lot. And partly that helped to sort of alleviate that. But it also made it a home. I remember one of the houses that my father took the pastor at First Baptist, where I met my wife. The pastor there was let go, removed because of immorality. And the house that we were to move into was the house that he lived in. So it was interesting because the day we're moving into the house, we're painting the walls. We had some folks who came up from the church and they were helping us out. And they said, "We're so glad you guys are moving in the house. We felt like this was a curse over the house until you kind of move in and you're going to drive the curse away." And I'm like, "Oh, great. What happened in this place," right? But my mom quickly took that house and made it a home. And it became our home. And before you knew it, whatever was over that, whatever dark cloud was there, was gone. It was our home. But that's what she did. That's what mom does. She makes a house a home. Otherwise, it's just four walls and some doors. And it takes a lot of work for that to happen. It takes a lot of sacrifice for that to happen. She adds variety to the lives of her family, verse 14. She is like a merchant ship. She brings her food from afar. The word starting in the Hebrew text is she is. And this provides the alphabetical sequence that continues on through this poem. It features her enterprising quest for food beyond what is produced locally. I love this because, in those days they didn't have refrigerators, and so you'd go off to the open marketplace and you'd have to go daily. We got a good taste of this when we lived in Russia because you didn't always, have to stock up your fridge. Our fridge was not that big anyway, but, oftentimes Les was going to the market, and out there they had these outdoor reniks, which is where you would get a lot of your food, and then you could go to the market and you get your meats and stuff like that. But this is what they would do. They would go out to the marketplace every day. They would gather the food. They would bring it in. And it was interesting because at these reniks, there's our modern day swap meet in the U.S., but at these reniks you would have oranges that come from here and all over the world and stuff like that, and you would bring back these unique treats that she would do. So there's nothing mundane about her even when it comes to the food. She does not spare herself in supplying for the needs of her household, verses 15 through 18. She does not have any of the vices of the sluggard. She is ready and prepared for the day begins. Everyone in her household is cared for. She gets up. Well, it is still night, verse 15, and she gives food to her household and portions to her maid, and she makes sure that everyone else is taken first, and then it's her turn. Then it's her turn. She takes initiative and she approaches her work with vigor, determination, with readiness, with strength. She is no weakling who is backed into her role, but she has energetic enthusiasm as she participates in this life. She's not relegated to self. Well, this is the role I have. Okay. No, she pursues it. She goes after it. This is her delight, to care for her household, to make sure that everyone is provided for. And she does so with great enthusiasm. She is urged on by her success, and she continues to work beyond what is normally expected. You see, she gets up before the dawn. It is still night out, and her candle burns way into the night as she continues to work, and she continues to provide, and she continues to do. It's one of the things with my mom, always, she is up past Dad. Dad would go to bed early because Dad would get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and do what he'd have to do. But Mom was always up late. She was always sitting in the living room in that chair. I could see it, reading her Bible. And that is how her day ended. But she was up before all of us to get us ready for school. And I still hear that song she'd sing to get, man, this song would get you out of bed. It's just so annoying that there's no way you're staying in bed to listen to this thing. And she walked through the room, and this is what she do every morning. Get us up to school and out the door, and lunch is packed and all of that stuff. Get everyone going and everyone on their way, and then she gets to sit down and do her thing. She is a generous spirit, verse 20. And I do a little bit of play on words here, and I'll show you why in a moment. Here we have the private life and the public life link hands by means of catchwords. Let me show you the structure, verses 19 and 20. I'll read them for you. She stretches out her hands to the staff, and her hands, palms literally, grasp the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor, and she stretches out her hands to the needy. Here's the structure, and it's another chiastic structure. She stretches out her hands stretch out. In verse 20 and verse 19. Then we have the palms grasp the spindle, and she spreads out her palm to the poor. This is a beautiful structure, and it's very telling. Her palms take hold of the spindle and openly offer themselves to those who are needy. There is a wordplay on here, as we see, with the palms grasping the things that she utilizes to produce. And I love this because this is the thought. She closes her hand on the tools of production, but opens to share her rewards with the poor and the needy. This is so tough for all of us. Look at me. I did the job. I worked hard. I put my hand to the wheel. I did this. The last thing I'm going to do is give it to the guy in the corner who's not working a job. He doesn't deserve my money. I worked for it. She's not like that. She walks in the way of wisdom. And wisdom says we care for the needy and the poor. It's not a suggestion from God. And this woman understands that, and she lives that way. If I can put it in my own words, she is tight-fisted when it comes to her labor, but when it comes to those in need, she is not. She is not. I love it because when we're driving down to California, I don't even have to say anything. We'll sit there at a rest stop and see people with the pan out, and they're out looking for money and asking for food and that. And my wife will get out of the car and go over there and give them money and give them the food. And my kids will say, but Mom, we're not going to have anything to snack on. And she gets to tell them then what we are supposed to be doing to care for the needy. And God always provides. You never have to worry. You never have to worry. And I ask this question we should ask so often of ourselves. Why I so often assume that taking care of our own excludes taking care of the stranger. Those who are committed to family, oftentimes we find they're so isolated to family, they forget about the rest of the world around them. This woman doesn't do that. She provides for home. She also provides for others. She is confident for her household against the winter, verse 21. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She did this. She prepared the clothing. She is still elegant despite her strength and hard work, verse 22. She takes coverings for herself. She makes coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Listen to me. This is a woman who knows how to put her hair up, roll up her sleeves, get to work, and then come down and put her hair down and dress up in a fine dress. She is all woman. She is all woman. She's not afraid of the work, but she knows how to be a woman. She is a woman that makes the man, verse 23. We have the reference to the husband finally after all of this time. Where do we fit in all of this? Verse 23. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. This is a place of prestige. This is where business took place. This is where legal decisions took place. Likely he was a part of this community where they would make these decisions in regards to law for the community and so on. And they would bring court cases to the city gates and they would determine them and discuss them. And obviously he had a role in which he impacted the community. She released him to do what he needed to do, and that was to provide for the community and fulfill his role, one that was one of prestige, honor, public trust, and grave responsibilities. So over the years, the conferences and places that I've been able to travel and speak, whether overseas or here, it's because my wife has set me free to do that. Because I know home is taken care of, and when I come home, it's going to be running as it ought to be run, and I don't need to step in and fix things. It's already going to be that way. I just need to go do what I need to do. She is industrious, verse 24, verse 25. She has an optimistic view of the future. Strength and dignity are her clothing. She smiles at the future. The true beauty of a woman is seen in her virtuous apparel. She smiles invitingly at whatever troubles and adventures the future might bring because she is metaphorically clothed with strength and dignity. Over the years, we've had so many changes. My mom's not one given to change, but she's always walked into the future, ready and willing. Wherever my father goes, Mom went. And the reason why she does not have the fear of the future is because she fears her God, and He is the one who is sovereign. She is a capable teacher, well acquainted with wisdom, verse 26. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. This is one of the greatest things I've watched over the years with my mom and dad is the fact that they taught together. She taught the women, he taught the men. And what a great privilege that is. She avoids laziness, verse 27, the bread of idleness. This is the bread that is not earned by the one who eats it. It's an idiomatic way of talking about someone who indulges in laziness. The line of the motto really that runs through all of this, endorsing her lifestyle, she is someone who is not given to the ways of the sluggard. She is not lazy. There's nothing idle about her. She is constantly busy, 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 busy. That's the life of a wife and mother, busy. You know, sometimes you hear women make fun of the fact that women can multitask and men can't, but that's because of their role. That's how God designed them to be. I mean, there's a whole lot of brands in the fire. I tell you, we sit around our household with 6 kids, and as their lives grow and get bigger and bigger, there's a lot to do and a lot to keep track of and a lot to deal with. She is gratefully acknowledged by her family for all the benefits they have received from her. Verses 28 and 29, her children rise up and bless her. Her husband also, and he praises her, saying, many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her the product of her hands, and her works praise her in the gates. Listen to me, as far as they're concerned, she is the greatest wife and mother in the world. And no one will tell me otherwise. She possesses the primary principle of wisdom. She fears the Lord. This is the capstone of this woman's character. Her beauty is her total commitment to God. It's where it all starts. It's where it all ends. It's where Proverbs begins. 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. It's where it all starts. And it permeates everything from there on out. Verse 31, she is to be praised for the fruit of her hands. Listen to me, I tell you, if you have sons, you raise them, tell them, look for this woman. If you find her, hang on to her. If you have married such a woman, praise her often, because they are rare and hard to find. And yes, we take this one day out of the year to stop and to praise wife and mother for all that they do, especially mother. But it shouldn't take one special day out of the year. We should do it often throughout the year. Affirm to them, you're the greatest. Thank you. Dad, would you close in a word of prayer?